is National 9 News with Brian Naylor.
Good evening, and it may not be Watergate revisited, but police have not discounted the possibility of political motives in the overnight break-in of Bob Hawke's Sandringham home. Intruders ransacked the ground floor of the house while Mr Hawke's wife Hazel slept upstairs. They took a video cassette recorder and a small Instamatic camera. John Gatfield reports that security at the Hawke household will be stepped up.
Last night's intruders entered the building by forcing open a kitchen window and cutting through the fly-wire screen. Police would not allow us to film that window. The burglary seems to have taken place sometime between 10 o'clock last night and 8 o'clock this morning, while Mrs Hazel Hawke was home alone and sleeping. She told reporters that Mr Hawke's study had been rifled, his desk broken into, and cabinets had been searched. Doors and cupboards in other rooms were also opened and searched. But Mrs Hawke says she has no idea whether the burglars were after money or private papers.
Well, I'm not making any assumptions about what the motivation was. There is equipment missing, and the study was paid some particular attention, but as far as I can see, there's nothing missing there, and there's no real concern on my part, but I just don't know.
Senior police took charge this morning, and they too say they don't know if there's any political connection. Detectives examined Mr Hawke's Mercedes car, parked in the drive, and even started the engine, but there was no sign that it had been tampered with. Police point out that there are many burglaries in the Sandringham area. It is, after all, a well-to-do suburb, and the Hawke home, two-storied with a tennis court, swimming pool and a Mercedes, might have appeared an attractive target to a neighbourhood thief. But apparently the ALP believes there could be a political motive. It was Mr Hawke's campaign headquarters staff that telephoned news media from Sydney this morning to tell them about the break-in. John Gatfield, National 9 News.
And Mr Hawke, who spent the day campaigning in Brisbane, says he's not concerned about the political implications of the break-in, but like anybody else, is upset that intruders were in his house while his wife was there alone.
Bob Hawke first learnt about the break-in about 9 o'clock in Adelaide. Mrs Hawke tried to phone him, but he was busy doing radio interviews before departing for Brisbane. Although concerned, he won't change his Queensland itinerary to go home. He doesn't know exactly what's been taken, but says he has nothing to hide or fear.
I'm upset about it, not so much for myself or any loss there is, but obviously it's a bit upsetting for my wife to have had burglars in your home. It's not very pleasant.
So do you think there could have been any political motives?
Look, in the whole of my career I've worked on the basis that if I don't have evidence to sustain a charge, I never make it. I have no evidence at all that's involved, so I don't make the charge.
Mr Hawke was in Brisbane to address the Securities Institute of Queensland, and following his condemnation yesterday of Treasurer John Howard over his handling of the OECD report, Mr Hawke attacked Mr Howard again, this time on taxation. Mr Hawke says the government is not serious about recouping lost money through illegal tax schemes because Mr Howard ignored the advice of Tax Commissioner O'Reilly in a letter Mr O'Reilly sent to the Treasurer last October. Mr Hawke flies to Townsville tonight to deliver Labor's North Queensland policy. John Mangos with the Bob Hawke campaign, Brisbane.
After whipping up a storm over his savings under the bed statement, the Prime Minister has switched campaign tactics. Mr Fraser drew widespread criticism for his claims that a Labor government would rob savings from banks. Now he's gone back to concentrating on Labor's prices and incomes policy. Peter Harvey reports the switch became noticeable today as Mr Fraser completed campaigning in Perth and then flew on to Adelaide.
Campaigning in Perth, a tour of the Italian club, Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser was already under behind-the-scenes pressure from Liberal Party colleagues to change his campaigning style. The Prime Minister appeared to shrug it all aside. He took an hour off the active campaign and appeared to be enjoying himself. Later, though, the pressure was to return, pressure that reflected itself in today's businessman's breakfast in a Perth hotel. The Prime Minister had moved well away from his tough language of the past 48 hours. In particular, he made no mention of the Labor Party attempting to rob banks. He did, however, have the usual grim warnings about socialist policies.
But against the background of what Labor wants, the funds they demand, what would be left for the banks? What would be left for the building societies? What would be left for the credit unions? What would be left for families? What would be left to run your businesses and keep the fabric of a private enterprise society moving?
When the Prime Minister left for a series of radio talkback shows in Perth, reporters wanted to ask him about the criticism from within his party. Mr Fraser was having none of it. Flying into Adelaide late today, Mr Fraser summoned a plainside news conference, this time to once again hammer away at Labour's prices policy, switching his main attack back to where it had been before the banks issue blew up. Tomorrow, Mr Fraser goes on to Sydney for a celebration. Tomorrow he becomes the nation's second longest serving Prime Minister. 7 years, 3 months and 15 days. Peter Harvey with the Prime Minister in Adelaide.
More on the election later in the bulletin, including a High Court decision that leaves an estimated 500,000 people without a vote. And now back to the election, and a bid to have the electoral rolls reopened before March the 5th has been rejected by the High Court in Canberra. If the challenge had succeeded, an extra 500,000 Australians would have been eligible to vote. Quentin Fogarty reports the case was taken to the High Court by 4 New South Wales people who failed to get their names on the rolls before they closed earlier this month.
The applicants argued that the closing of the rolls on February the 4th, the day after the election was announced, deprived them of their constitutional right to vote. They claimed that because they were already on the New South Wales state roll, they were entitled to vote in a federal election. The High Court, by a majority of 6-1, saw the matter differently. The 6 judges said, in essence, that Section 41 of the Constitution did not confer a right to vote in a federal election, but prevented that right from being taken away. The judges pointed out that Commonwealth laws, including the Electoral Act, which had come into effect during the past 80 years, now laid out the legal procedures and entitlements for people to qualify to vote. The judges indicated that to all intents and purposes, Section 41 of the Constitution was now a spent force. Mr Justice Murphy strongly defended Section 41 of the Constitution, saying the right to vote was so precious that it should not be read out of the Constitution by implication. However, his fellow judges disagreed and the applications were dismissed. Quentin Fogarty at the High Court, Canberra.
Still with the election and in his special series on key seats, Jim Whaley is here in Victoria, once considered the jewel in the Liberal Party's crown. Labor made big gains in 1980. Now both the ALP and the Liberals hold many Victorian seats by slim majorities.
With Bob Hawke's acquisition of power in the ALP, Victoria maintains its reputation as the most potent breeding ground for national political leaders. Both Hawke and Malcolm Fraser have their power bases here. As the parties stand now, Victoria is fairly evenly divided. The ALP holds 17 seats, the government 16, 13 Liberal, 3 National Party. A 4% swing to Labor would see another 5 Liberal seats change hands. One of them, Bendigo, has a unique record in federal elections, the only seat in the country that's always gone the way of the winning party, no matter how close the contest. And this time it is close. Labor needs a swing of only 1.3%. Small wonder then that Prime Minister Fraser made Bendigo his first election whistle-stop, even before the official campaign began.
How are you?
Labour's campaign in Victoria will rely almost as heavily on the image of this man as it does on Bob Hawke. John Cain took the ALP back to government in the state last April, after 27 years in opposition. He's still running hot. Cain is able to boast that Victoria now has the lowest level of unemployment in Australia, a statistic he hopes voters won't easily forget.
Nor can we ignore the electorate of Flinders, won, and impressively won, by the Liberals in a by-election only last December. Many expected it to fall into Labour's hands, considering the trend of such by-elections and the state of the Australian economy. But the Labour campaign failed.
If the government repeated its performance in Flinders, Labour would be in danger of losing Victorian seats. 5, led by Ballarat, would go with a swing of less than 3%. Peter Staples is trying to win the outer Melbourne electorate of Diamond Valley for Labour. The sitting member is Liberal Communications Minister Neil Brown. Labour picked up a 6% swing here last time. It needs little more than half that to win now. Neil Brown concedes it's a volatile electorate and admits too that while the economy is the big issue, he's vulnerable to the anti-dam lobby, even though he personally opposes Tasmania's decision on the Franklin.
They must find a better way. Now, that's our position, but to say the federal government should then move in by force and stop a state from building one of its basic public works, that's a very rocky road that you start walking down if people propose that.
Away from the Liberal-Labor dogfight in seats like Diamond Valley, there's a more incestuous contest between the coalition partners in Gippsland. The National Party's Peter Nixon has retired after 21 years. The Liberals are free to contest the seat for the first time in 61 years. And current thinking is that Gippsland is ripe for the taking. Jim Whaley, National 9 News.
Thank you, Jim. And as he prepares to deliver the Democrats' policy speech on national television tonight, Senator Don Chipp has predicted a sweeping victory for the ALP. Senator Chipp will make unemployment a key part of his campaign launch.
Senator Chipp spent the entire day in Sydney, much of the time telling various radio listeners that Labor's economic package was better than the Liberals, that Mr Hawke's election performance was far better than Mr Fraser's, and that the Liberal Party in general left a lot to be desired.
This is why I left the Liberal Party. I'd had a gutful of it paying so much service to the multinationals from whom it has derived $5 million in which to fight this campaign.
Then, at a midday news conference, he predicted Mr Fraser would quickly lose party leadership in the event of failure on March 5th. And at this stage, he says, failure seems imminent.
Friday, I would have said it was even money. Today, I would say it was 6-4, 2-1 on Labor.
While the senator appears to be somewhat pro-Labor this election, he denies the party is suggesting that second preferences go to the ALP. Senator Chipp caps his day in Sydney with the delivery of his party's policy speech on national television tonight.